So maybe you can start briefly introduce yourself and your role in your organization.
Sure thing. Hi. First of all, thanks for having me. Moritz Tölke from Sovereign Speed. We are a road freight carrier, and my job as a director for green projects is to lead our decarbonization journey. So we have a lot of own emissions, so our own footprint and our own fleet. And so there's a huge ambition to bring that down by bringing electrification and book and claim and these things into the market. And that's my job to drive that strategy into the operations.
Great. It's very impactful and efficient in driving sustainability, your role. What are the biggest milestones your company has achieved in reducing carbon emission across your supply chain?
So we started this journey a couple of years ago. And first of all, set a strategy, and now we also have science-based targets confirmed. So we do have strong science-based targets, and now we are implementing the first strategic projects. Definitely the key two things I would say at this point, besides typical reductions through optimizations, are really now book and claim for HVO 100. So we're really heavily on direct fueling HVO and electrification. So these two are definitely the pillars, especially for our near-term 2030 target. And that's also where we collaborate most with Smart Freight Center on to understand how to implement these projects. But definitely the most impactful are these two measures. Yeah.
It's great to see how in this decarbonization journey, collaboration is a key. Also now with Smart Freight Center, there are maybe some examples of your collaboration with Smart Freight Center that were impactful and useful for your organization.
Oh, there's a lot. And having been at Smart Freight Center myself a couple of years ago, I already there valued the partnership that is generally there with Smart Freight Center and the companies, but also between the companies and in horizontal and vertical way. So we can talk to other carriers, we can talk to LSPs, to shippers here. And there is not a competition approach, but there's really a partnership approach to like
Share
collaborate,
of knowledge.
bringing it further. And so over the years that we've been a member now, we've been heavily participating, bringing, I think, a carrier view in, but even more, we had the possibility to get a lot of value out because we saw what are the insights from our partners, from our customers, what are they struggling with, and how can we overcome this together. And there's, of course, happening in standards like book and claim development and the MBM guidances. So there was a lot of collaboration there. On the sustainable procurement guidelines that were published, I think earlier last year or even the year before, there was a lot of collaboration there, which also tangible output that we can now also use in practice. And I think that's what we value a lot about the Smart Freight Center approach in the last years, especially that is becoming more and more to actionable guidances, outputs that we can really use to not just report emissions, but really bring them down. And I think that can only happen in this space where all the parties are working together.
Exactly, where it's also like a win-win solution for both parties. So it's like a sharing of knowledge and it's not just someone getting the benefits for it, but everyone gets the benefits of this journey that we're all going through together. And what innovative solution or partnerships have been the most effective in cutting emission in your company?
Well, I already mentioned the HVO and then electrification. I think for both of those cases where we have multiple projects ongoing with multiple customers, the key for success in those is when we're actually sitting together at the table, at least with our customer or even their customer. And it's not a transactional procurement or transactional conversation, but it's really a partnership approach to say, okay, how can we implement this electric truck now? What are the investment we need to make? What are the advantages? How can we align the calculation? And whenever it came to that moment where there was an open conversation with all stakeholders, that's really the projects where we see, okay, that then really scales through. And we have a huge project with HVO on FTL lanes that we run in Europe with over 500,000 liters of HVO, which is only possible because our LSP customer and the shipper are all aligned on what we're doing. And I see the same also happening for electrification. And I think that's really the message that I can send as a carrier towards LSPs and towards shippers. Involve us, and let's also together at the table and work the solution together so everybody can get the benefit and also the reduction.
That's great to hear. In this journey, everyone is working together also to discover new technologies, new innovations, and I think that's really important. And can you share therefore a specific example of a collaboration with a customer that led to significant carbon reductions?
Yeah. Happy to. So as I just mentioned, we have one customer where we are running the production lines across Europe for an LSP, and they are working then for the shipper. There was very, very well because we aligned on it, and that is in the HVO space, where the most important part was that we align on who reports the reductions in what way, so that when the shipper is paying, let's say, for the impact, that also comes down in the CO2 reductions he has and the absolute numbers that he can then report out. So that's a really impactful part. And we also just started an electrification journey with a huge shipper in Germany, where also again we partnered with an LSP in between, and also with a manufacturer of the trucks or the service provider of a trucking as a service. We also then had better access to the electric vehicles that we can then, together with the LSP, present to the shipper. And also there again, we now have 4 electric trucks running since this month, 24/7, and it's working. And it's working because all of the chains, from the producer of the car to us, to the LSP, to the shipper, are aligned and in sync. And I think that's really the key again.
Yes, absolutely. Also seeing how sustainability is market differentiator or is a competitive advantage for your company, and it's fundamental to developing it also for the future. And it's not just something that stands on the side, but a priority for you.
Yeah.
How do you measure the real world impact of your decarbonization efforts, and what key metrics guide your strategy?
Yeah. So of course the baseline framework that we use is the GLAC, or now the ISO. And having been at Smart Freight Center, I really value the approach of trying to get good emission data, good baseline data. And being a carrier, it only makes sense that we pursue to get primary data ourselves, because we actually consume the fuel. So it makes sense that we actually know how much emissions that fuel had, and we're not trying to model anything. And we've been working with ShipZero here, an accredited tool provider for that over the last years. It's not a simple plug and play. We have really invested into that, and that's also something that a company needs to decide to do in that sense. And we have a certain size. We are medium to large size carrier, so we do have a bit of resources to put that into to play. But that's what we are following there. So we're following the advice of the GLAC, we're following the tools, and now we are measuring really our primary fuel consumption, which we then can also use in these cases of electrification, or in the case of HVO interventions, book and claim, market-based measures, to really see the difference to the real-life baseline, which is often difficult. And so we see now, where we bring those innovative reduction products to the market, how important it is to have this baseline CO2 calculation
To track
that's
it
also
well.
aligned, and to track it. Because this allows us now to really say, hey, last year the transport was this, now it's this. As the model, it's actually there, and customers are also trusting it because of the Smart Freight Center background of the calculations. And it helps us also internally to see how good measures are working and to identify hotspots and track them.
And always to improve as well.
Yeah.
So customers plays also a fundamental role for you, no?
100%. So the unique position that Sovereign Speed has is that we only work for logistics service providers. So we never work for shippers. So we see each part in the chain. We see our part is to supply a solution that then the LSP can integrate and actually give to the shipper, because in the end, the emissions are created in our truck, but they are owned by everybody up the chain. In that sense, we are relying on customers to work with us, to want our solutions. And of course, it's not that, unfortunately, 100% of our customers are working with us on this topic, but it is nice to see an increase in these customer requests, in the depth they want to work with you, in the willingness to also invest jointly into decarbonization. But yeah, we as a carrier alone, we can only, let's say, supply a certain amount of measures and solutions, but they need to be picked up by customers.
Okay, of course. So then also trust plays a fundamental role in this case, because customers, of course, have to have like 100% of trust towards the company. And do you think that a collaboration, for example, with the Smart Freight Center could help on that?
100%. I think the trust is gained in two ways. One, through a decoupling of the procurement process, because of course we still have to talk about monetary values, and there's of course always a procurement in transport. But as long as you talk sustainability outside of that, so that there's no commercial interest, let's say, in the decarbonization journey, there can be trust between, let's say, the sustainability team of a shipper, of an LSP, and us, while there's still a commercial side conversation on the outside of that. And the second point is then that you have credible numbers based on credible frameworks, on ISO, on like framework, and that's also accredited, verified, and that you're working with partners that are trustworthy. Because maybe a couple of years ago, people were using a lot of different methodologies. But these days, when we talk to shippers and LSPs, they want to have some connection to the Smart Freight Center, to the GLEC, which is very good because it's one framework and one standard that it's becoming. And so it's really helpful for us to say, yes, we're working with an accredited tool. Yes, we are a member of the GLEC and the Smart Freight Center. And so, yeah, I think that is a huge builder of trust.
Great. So before you mentioned the market-based measure specification and you participated in the pilot of the MBM measure specification, what was the value of this for you?
It was very helpful because we started out to develop a solution in our LTL network. And that was quite difficult to do because there wasn't something like that before. And I think the whole market started to develop that in the last 2 years. And so were we, together with our tool provider and together also with first customers, which is also, again, a nice example that we have certain customers that develop this approach with us. And being able to, while developing this, also joining the pilot assurance part was helpful to understand, are we interpreting the MBM framework correctly? Are we working correctly? But also use the chance to share with the Smart Freight Center and the group here maybe real life hurdles we see in applying the framework, or things that are not 100% clear, where we still need to work together to adjust the understanding. And I think that's where it was really helpful for us to be in the pilot for both sides, but especially also, of course, for us to understand, okay, this is the right interpretation, this is how we're going to get validated. And again, also that all helps in building trust towards customers to say, yes, we've been also part of the assurance part, because otherwise there's going to be a wild west in this whole market. And I think that's where it was really helpful to participate early on in the interpretation of this.
So you think that by working together also with them, this can always improve, no? And you can both get benefits from this project.
Oh, 100%. And we had sessions today and yesterday on this book and claim part, and I think there's still a lot of joint understanding that is now forming only. And of course, there's a first version of the framework, which is very good, and of the guidance and now an assurance. But we learn how to adjust maybe a certain part of that, but also how we need to interpret it. And I think it's an ongoing process. And the number one thing that needs to be ensured is the integrity of the framework, and that's being kept, while there's also an application level that really works on the reality. And I think that's going to be in all modes, that's still an ongoing process. But the Smart Freight Center is giving a great platform, and also with the book and claim community, a good framework or a good platform to discuss this framework, to discuss mode-specific cases. And I really like that there's a big focus on this topic, so that the integrity and trust in all of this can be upheld and strengthened even further.
That's great to hear. Also to see how this can be tangible and concrete in an event such as Smart Freight Week, and we can actually have conversation and
100%.
And what are the market trends for emission reporting? Do you see already use of standards by your clients?
Yes. So we always have this interesting case where we created our first CO2 reporting maybe 4 years ago, and we sent it to all our customers, or to the major customers. And they're like, oh, this is great, but we really don't have a direct usage of this right now. And what is GLEC even, And nowadays we see way more customers approaching us proactively and saying, hey, dear carrier, dear sovereign, I want your emission reporting, and it needs to be aligned with GLEC, it needs to be aligned with ISO. We say, okay, great, really good. So this, on the one hand, we see that the standard is being way more present in the industry, and alternative approaches are being phased out. And on the other hand, we also see just a general uptake in the request for this data, for this standard, which I think is also, again, driving us and others to apply the standard and to uphold it. So I definitely can see this going into the right direction.
So in this context, we can also say that training and providing the right knowledge is also key to spread this message across all customers.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I think that everybody that is participating in the Smart Freight Week, that'll be a carrier, an LSP, shipper, consultant, is doing a great job when they are spreading the word also outside of this bubble and communicating, hey, there is this great platform, there is these standards. We do not need to talk about how to report anymore. There is these standards, and we can take it from here and develop it further, rather than asking ourselves, okay, maybe we need to change that or this or that. There is a standard, let's use it and let's get into action mode. And for that, I think the foundation is there now.
Yeah, definitely clear communication and training as well play a crucial role.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, what ambitious goals have you set for the next 5 to 10 years? And what steps will be crucial in achieving them?
So as I said earlier, we actually have as a road freight carrier, we are one of the few at the moment, but I hope that it will pick up, but that actually has approved science-based targets. So our 2030 plan is to reduce 42% in scope 1 and 2, and us being asset heavy, our major footprint is in scope 1 and 2. So we're actually talking about 40% reduction in our entire consumption. And so that's quite ambitious over the next 5 years. But I think we have the experience now internally from the last years of having driver trainings, optimization, so we can still get percentages out. So that will be a key internal way to optimize. And now we're building on these 2 blocks that I mentioned earlier, the ambient framework being part of our HVO intervention. So that's going to be a key on the midterm. Probably not in like 20 years, we're not going to use HVO anymore, but especially for the next 5 years, that's going to be a key driver in LTL and FTL. And then gradually picking up the electrification. So we have first trucks rolling, as I said, now 4 just this month in Hamburg again. And that's also going to be a key part in the next 5. And especially if you're looking into the next 10 years, that will be the key to drive electrification, which means for us, and I like to see that here as well, a complete shift in the conversation also there with grid providers, with energy providers, with customers again, for loading infrastructure, charging infrastructure. So all of these conversations are definitely going to be the key to reach our main target, which is the reduction of 42% in 5 years and then
That's
further.
great. Great to hear. You have very specific standards, and we hope to look forward to process to achieving those together. And do you have any success stories or positive outcomes from your involvement with the Smart Freight Center?
Yeah, I think we already briefly touched on a couple of them. I think the general outcome is that no matter what working group we are in, and we are in a couple on electrification, on MBM, on procurement, we also have a small airline, we do airline trucking, so that's why we're also in the airline group. And no matter where we are, there's always this great exchange of the challenges, but also the opportunities that the industry sees together. And that is, for me, there's not this one thing where I would say, okay, this is the successful Smart Freight Center that we have, but it's the general conversation that we have everywhere. And the outcomes of tangible measures, of tangible frameworks that we can use in the exchange across the industry, because we can't build the solutions ourselves in a silo. And in the different groups really gives this holistic approach and this platform and community. And I think that's really is the success. And it helps us also, of course, to scale, especially with customers that are also part of the Smart Freight Center, because we speak the same language, because we have the same understanding. And I think that's a huge networking potential we have also in the Smart Freight Center to then build together solutions that are then maybe benefiting again back the Smart Freight Center, because we have implemented things and can report back. And so for me, the biggest highlight in the collaboration with Smart Freight Center is the general exchange of ideas and getting guidances for the industry.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for your insights. It's really valuable, and I think your role is essential in driving these sustainability efforts and then this decarbonization journey. So thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to keep collaborating together, and hope you will enjoy the rest of the last day of our free week.
Oh, I'm sure I will. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.